Apple might be quietly testing one of the most serious camera upgrades an iPhone has ever seen, a DSLR-style teleconverter. That's not software trickery, not computational zoom, but actual camera hardware, usually reserved for professional cameras. And if this rumor is real, the iPhone 18 Pro could change how phone photography works in a very real way. Before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It really helps me keep bringing you more tech breakdowns like this one. Here's why this matters. Smartphone cameras have gotten insanely good, but they still hit a wall when it comes to optical zoom and creative control. Most phones rely on digital cropping once you go past a certain range, and even the best periscope lenses have limits. Apple, especially, has leaned heavily on computational photography rather than optical tricks. But this new leak suggests Apple might finally be crossing into DSLR territory, literally. According to a tipster known as Smart Pikachu, Apple is currently testing a variable aperture camera system for the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max, and that system has now reached the engineering sample stage. That part isn't entirely new. We've heard about variable aperture rumors before. But the surprise is the second claim. Apple is also evaluating a teleconverter for the iPhone 18 Pro camera. If you're not familiar with teleconverters, here's the simple version. On DSLR cameras, a teleconverter is an optical element that increases the effective focal length of a lens. In plain English, it lets you zoom in further without physically changing the lens. The trade-off is that you lose some light, which can affect image quality, unless you have a way to compensate for it. And that's where the variable aperture suddenly makes a lot of sense. A variable aperture allows the camera to physically adjust how wide the lens opens, controlling how much light hits the sensor. Apple has never done this on an iPhone before. Right now, iPhones use fixed apertures and rely on software to handle exposure and depth effects. A variable aperture would give Apple much more flexibility, especially if a teleconverter is involved. Put these two features together and you get something interesting. A teleconverter could improve mid to long-range zoom quality without relying as much on digital cropping. Meanwhile, the variable aperture could open wider to compensate for the light lost through the teleconverter. That's a very DSLR-style solution to a smartphone problem. This lines up with earlier reports too. Back in December 2024, respected supply chain analyst Ming-Chi Kuo claimed that the main camera on the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max would feature a variable aperture. Multiple reports since then have said Apple was actively discussing components with suppliers, so this isn't a one-off rumor floating in isolation. If Apple pulls this off, the creative implications are huge. Variable aperture means better control of exposure in bright conditions, less overexposed highlights, and potentially more natural depth of field effects, not just artificial background blur. Combine that with improved optical zoom, and suddenly the iPhone becomes far more appealing to photographers and videographers who currently carry a real camera for certain shots. That said, this is still the testing phase. Apple is reportedly using engineering samples to evaluate optical performance, reliability, and whether the system can be mass-produced at Apple's quality standards. And that's important because Apple is known to scrap features late in development if they don't meet expectations. We've seen this story before. Variable aperture was rumored for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and that never happened. On top of that, while Smart Pikachu has a solid track record with Android leaks, they're relatively new in the Apple rumor ecosystem. So yes, this deserves a healthy amount of skepticism. It's also worth noting that at this stage, Apple's overall iPhone 18 Pro design is likely already locked in. That suggests these camera tests are about refining specific modules, not redesigning the phone from scratch. Apple may even be running parallel tests without committing to anything for mass production. Still, the direction here is exciting. Apple rarely experiments with DSLR-inspired hardware, preferring software-based solutions instead. If the company is seriously evaluating teleconverters and variable apertures together, it suggests Apple might finally be prioritizing optical improvements over purely computational ones. Personally, this is exactly the kind of camera upgrade I've been waiting for. More creative control, better real zoom, and less reliance on digital tricks. If even part of this rumor becomes reality, the iPhone 18 Pro could be one of the most interesting camera phones Apple has ever made, and maybe the first iPhone that truly feels comfortable borrowing ideas from professional cameras. What's your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments section. See you in the next video. Take care.